This episode is brought to you by FairDesk, a crypto derivatives trading platform founded by 6 former Binance execs and 3 former Morgan Stanley architects. FairDesk is a company focused on building a platform that enables traders to profit from both rising and falling markets. Sign up today and CB will credit you up to $600 in trading funds. For more information, visit fairdesk.com, link in the description below.
Pension funds across the world have started investing in what are called alternative investments, which are hedge funds, private equity funds, real estate funds, venture funds. These are all funds that invest in something other than publicly traded stocks and bonds. That's why they're called alternative investments. What happened for the last 15 years, pension funds all over the world have begun investing in alternative investments under terms that are inconsistent with the regulatory environment. Secrecy has crept into state and local pensions where it did not exist before. Every state has a Freedom of Information Act law, and the private equity and hedge fund industry have eviscerated state public records laws in every state. Most of these pension funds don't even know if they own crypto. They get into a hedge fund, they get into a private equity deal, they get into a mutual fund, whatever. Whether that fund that they've invested in is in crypto, they probably don't know. I suspect most of this investing in crypto is being done indirectly. The pension fund is investing in a professionally managed fund, which in turn is investing in crypto.
If you want to see more videos and interviews like this from influential people in tech, finance, and sports, subscribe to the channel and make sure you hit the bell to be alerted. And go a step further and join the YouTube and membership area for early releases of videos like this. I'm out of here. It's your boy Crypto Blood, and welcome to another Kicking It session. Today I've got one of my favorites, Ted Siedle. He's on with us today. Make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. Leave any comments you may have after this. I know we're going to have an epic interview here. He's got a new article he wrote that came out on Forbes. He's a writer on Forbes. This is kind of going viral for him. I've been telling him to write about and learn about cryptos for a while. So maybe that's a new trend for Ted. We'll see. Ted Siedle, how are you? Thanks for joining.
Great, and glad to be here.
Yeah, so you can find Ted. He's fairly active on Twitter, Edward Siedle. So Ted, you are, for those that don't know, Ted is or was at one point the biggest whistleblower worldwide.
Worldwide, yeah.
Worldwide. You collected over $75 million in winnings from whistleblowing. What? Tell us about those cases that you won. Really quickly as a cursory.
Yeah, I started my career as an attorney with the SEC in Washington, regulating the stock market. And then I later started representing whistleblowers and became a whistleblower myself. And the awards that I received were from an investigation of JP Morgan and their wealth management operation and conflicts of interest and hidden fees related to their wealth management operation that the government wasn't aware of. So I received an award from the state of Indiana, from the Commodities Futures Trading Commission, and from the SEC a few years ago.
Nice. And so you're actively and currently working on the Ohio teachers' state pension, correct?
Yes, I was hired by 30,000 school teachers in Ohio to do a forensic investigation of the Ohio State Teachers Retirement System, which is a $100 billion state pension. The teachers were not getting the benefits that they'd been promised and had a lot of questions about how their money was being managed. And the people running the pension fund wouldn't answer their questions, in part because they didn't know the answers. So the teachers got together and crowdfunded a forensic investigation, raised money for me to take a look at what was going on there.
So any updates with that particular case you're working on?
Yeah, after I completed my forensic investigation of the teachers' retirement system, 2 board members immediately agreed with my findings, which were pretty damning. Then there was an election and 3 more board members were hired that agree with my findings. So now 5 out of 11 board members are, I think, in my camp and in the camp of the retired teachers. And they asked the state auditor, Keith Faber, to do an investigation of his own. And he agreed that based upon my investigation, there was a reasonable basis to conduct a special criminal investigation. And so that's what he's doing now. And I'm told his investigation will be released by the end of the year, maybe sooner.
Wow, so criminal now. So there's jail time possibly involved in this.
Well, I don't know what my investigation was not criminal. Mine was a forensic investigation of I'm looking for potential violations of the securities laws. But he has a different mandate, and so I don't know what his findings will be. But I'm confident in my findings, which were that the pension fund was grossly mismanaged. What I call, and I wrote this book with my friend Robert Kiyosaki, called "Who Stole My Pension?"
And I'll have a link for that in the description of this video, guys. Definitely check this one out.
And in the book, I discuss this concept of what I call gross malpractice generally practiced, which is that most pension funds around the country are grossly mismanaged. The investments are not properly vetted and not performing well. And most of these pensions are very secretive. They're supposed to be transparent, but they're not. But those were some of the findings in Ohio. Some of my findings were that the pension fund was not being transparent. It was not disclosing its fees properly. It was misrepresenting the risks it was taking, and its performance was very poor as well. So it was a very damning report about a year and a half ago.
Yeah, and I remember you sent me an article about, I think it was titled something like "A Year of Pernicious Stonewalling." That article, that was pretty interesting. And now I can't even see it. Thanks, Forbes.
Yeah, Forbes put in a paywall, which is not working out very well for them, I don't think. But yeah, that article was about the fact that I've been suing the state pension for 2 years now for access to public records. And they continue to stonewall. And so, I'm sure most of your listeners have heard of the old saying that read the prospectus before you invest. That's right. What any regulator will tell you, any financial advisor will tell you. But in the case of the Ohio State Teachers Pension Fund, they're not allowed to see the prospectuses.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. How do you get to that point?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, what happens at these pensions is Wall Street comes in and says that they want to manage these trillions of dollars that are in these state pension funds, but they want to do it in secrecy. They don't want to play by the rules. They don't want public scrutiny of public money. And they say, secrecy is good for you, Mr. Pension Fund. If the public knew what we were doing, they would go out and steal these investment opportunities. And so in order for the magic to work, we've got to keep everything secret. Secrecy is good for you. Secrecy is good for us. Well, of course it's not. Secrecy is never a good thing when it comes to your investments.
And this was the title of, I think, your report, right? The high cost of secrecy for the STRS.
Yes.
The findings you had, right?
Yes, that was the title of the report. And I really focus on secrecy or lack of transparency, because when you don't have transparency, you don't have public scrutiny, you don't have accountability to the public. So all kinds of bad things happen when you have secrecy. When you eliminate secrecy, then the bad things get exposed. So the solution to almost any investment pension problem is first and foremost to restore transparency. Let the people whose money it is see what is being done with their money.
Right.
So that's why it's always, to me, transparency is always the beginning of the problem and is usually largely the solution.
So before going any further, I have to ask you, Ted. I've asked you, I think, every time you've been on the show. Okay. I think you know where I'm going with this. Have you bought Bitcoin yet?
I have not bought Bitcoin yet,
Oh man, what is?
but
Why
I
not?
started my research. So this
Oh,
the part.
okay. That's a start.
Yeah,
There's a start.
I was working on a case, and I was introduced to this lawyer here in Orlando, Florida, who I started talking about. She does a lot with Bitcoin and or crypto. And so we got to talking, and I said, I want to do this article about crypto. And so,
Is it Miss Santos?
yes, Miss
Oh, okay.
Anessa Santos, who I
Anessa.
encourage you to invite onto your show.
I absolutely will. I absolutely will. I see her quoted a few times in your latest article. So that's a perfect segue into what we're going to be talking about today. I think, yeah, you should probably look into crypto. You talked about it a little bit in your article, and it's one of the best ones you've done. I think that is a sign from the universe, but that is another subject. We're going to be talking about today, guys, an article that Ted wrote in Forbes came out, I think, about a week ago. Your state pension is now gambling on cryptocurrency. So I found this pretty interesting because you out the gate, I know you're very fond of Warren Buffett. You out the gate quoted Warren Buffett. Cryptocurrencies basically have no value and don't produce anything.
Right. Yep.
Is that kind of why you're hesitant about crypto still?
Well, I think the article is, I think, somewhat balanced in the sense that what Ms. Santos said is that given the potential, you could call it regulatory hostility, or you could call it regulatory uncertainty. It makes it very difficult today for pension fiduciaries, investment advisors to recommend crypto because there are these uncertainties and there is some regulatory pushback going on here. So the question is, how do you resolve that? And I think that's what we're talking about in the article. Regardless of whether you think crypto has value or if you believe Warren Buffett has no value, how do you do your analysis to determine that this is a prudent investment?
I think that's the operative word, prudent. I don't think it is yet there to be a prudent investment. I think it's highly speculative. And so it's just interesting. Like, I'm a crypto guy through and through. Been in it for 9 years now. I know this space. And I do not think that at this juncture, we should have cryptos in. This shocked me. I didn't know this. 94% of pensions in America have some access to or exposure to cryptos. Now, that could be very small. It could be, I don't know if you've delved deeper into the actual numbers. Is it like 0.1%, a tenth of a percent, or less than that? Do you have those statistics on the actual amount?
No, we don't. And two things I should mention. When I first heard that figure, and that's from a recent 2022 report by the CFA Institute, which is a very highly regarded organization. And I was shocked that 94% number. And so was Forbes. Forbes called me or sent me an email saying, "Are you sure about that number?" I said, "You got to link it to the report. It's right there." But one of the things that the report says is that very few of the pension funds that they interviewed even responded. And truth be known, because most of these pension funds don't even know if they own crypto. They hire, they get into a hedge fund, they get into a private equity deal, they get into a mutual fund, whatever. Whether that fund that they've invested in is in crypto, they probably don't know. Right. So again, I suspect most of this investing in crypto is being done indirectly. The pension fund is investing in a professionally managed fund, which in turn is investing in crypto. So we don't know anything more than is in the report, which I think only 50 pension funds actually even responded. But of the 50 that responded, 94%.
Okay, got you.
They were. But interestingly enough, like I said to Forbes, the chances are that the ones who didn't respond are almost certainly in crypto. They just don't want to tell anybody about it. So I think that's a good number
But you
Um,
also mentioned that I think that it wasn't just that they directly invested in a cryptocurrency. It could have been a crypto equivalent, like a company that was a mining stock or something like a crypto mining stock, or
yeah.
maybe even a micro strategy. I would assume they would be considered a company that is crypto related, Michael Saylor's company. I can see how that is not maybe as shocking as one may think just from the headline. Now, one question I did have as I looked through this article, you talked about it being gambling on it. And like I said, I think that you are kind of correct there because it is very volatile. But what was interesting is what Anissa said in your article here. She mentioned that she thinks that pensions should not have anything to do with it right now because of the rapid increase in regulatory hostility. And I thought that was pretty interesting because I personally think it is very unclear where we're going to go with regulatory guidelines with cryptos at this point. I know after the new year, I've been hearing from people who are working with these agencies that come Q1 of 23, we will start to see a lot of clarity. And so, how do you feel about, and what do you think, I should say, what is your prediction on the direction we're going with crypto regulatory guidelines? Is it going to go the way of the CFTC, which I personally think it should, or do you think it'll go the way of the SEC? They've been having a battle lately about that.
I think the SEC will continue to weigh in on crypto matters. I don't think it'll just be the CFTC, in part because I don't think the CFTC has the regulatory infrastructure to really police this area in addition to the work they're already doing. And of course, I know, as Anissa says in the article, most of the people in the crypto world would prefer CFTC regulation because they perceive the CFTC to be less aggressive or rigorous in their regulatory work, which I think is a legitimate statement.
Yeah.
I think the SEC will continue to be involved because it's, crypto is creeping into 401k plans, it's pension plans, it's all over the place. And so you're going to have, I think, SEC.
But it's funny because I think we have to blame the Fed for this, honestly. I think the Fed creating an easy monetary environment, an easy money environment, creates the behavior for people to seek more risk.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why Wall Street has creeped into the cryptocurrency sector, because they had all this money. They're like, well, we're already in stocks. Where else can we go? Oh, yeah, Bitcoin, crypto.
Well, it's the same reason that these pension funds and others have migrated into alternative investments like hedge funds and private equity funds. And these are much riskier, much less transparent, much higher cost investments. So you got greater risk, greater cost, less transparency. But people have, felt compelled, particularly pension funds that are underfunded, to go out on the risk curve and take on these riskier investments. And I think that's happening in crypto. But what I think the crypto world should really think about is there's an opportunity here. Okay, so if you and I agree that crypto currently is not a straight up prudent investment, that's not to say it can't, an investment or a fund consisting of crypto couldn't be. So what would you, if you're a crypto entrepreneur, creating funds or whatever, investment opportunities for the public or whatever, how would you design a crypto product, a crypto offering that would satisfy the the regulatory concerns of pensions and other institutional investors? And if you can figure that out, then there's an opportunity here. But there's clearly, I think we all agree, there's clearly uncertainty here, a potential regulatory clampdown, but there's also a potential opportunity.
I think that the straightforward way is just to restrict percentage of total AUM, on meaning if you have X amount of AUM and maybe you can only have 1% be in crypto because it's very volatile. Like right now, as you stated, we don't know how much any of these pensions have. They could have 10%, 15. I'm being hyperbolic, but we don't know how much exposure they have to cryptos. And I know that Basel has set out guidelines for banks now that make sure that they only have X amount of crypto in their balance sheets now. That is a guideline that Basel has put out. So maybe something similar for pensions.
Well, the difference between banks and pensions is everything in the pension is supposed to be a prudent investment, whether it's 1% or 100%.
Okay.
You're not allowed to throw a little garbage in.
Gotcha.
Each investment has to be prudent in and of itself. Some can be riskier than others, but each investment has to meet the fiduciary standard. You don't get to throw in a certain amount of garbage.
But don't pensions have like junk bonds?
Yeah, they do. But again,
that's garbage. That's garbage, Ted.
They have investments that are highly speculative, for sure.
Okay, then I have to change my tune, because if they're allowed to invest in junk bonds, crypto is better than Bitcoin. Let's just be more specific. I think Bitcoin is better than a junk bond.
Well, the question is, how have these junk bonds made their way into pension funds? And, has there been...
I take that back. So junk bonds usually pay high yield, right? Bitcoin is a non-productive asset. It's like gold. So there's no yield to be made on a consistent basis. So maybe not. Maybe I'm comparing apples to oranges on that one.
Yeah, well, this is the challenge for Bitcoin is, first and foremost, what is it? What is the nature of the investment here?
It is digital gold, Ted. It's digital gold.
Well, I'm saying the first challenge is to explain to investors accurately, fairly, legally explain what the investment opportunity is, and to build in transparency. And I hear of these stories of these social influencers who are being paid to promote crypto, millions of dollars, to get out there and promote crypto. Now, if that's happening, that is part of that should be part of any transparency initiative. To anyone who's promoting these investments should be required to disclose that they're promoting, and the parties paying the social influencers, the crypto companies themselves, should be required to disclose who they're paying, what, how much, and for what. So these are kind of the building blocks, let's call them the cornerstones of prudence, that whether it's securities, real estate, commodities, whatever, that you need to have to meet the prudent person standard. And so
I think at this point we just need a new framework built. I don't think it can be done on a how we test blueprint or framework or any of these other CFTC or even SEC guidelines they have. It's a new asset class. I think it just needs a new write-up. And I mean, maybe they're behind the ball. Maybe they should have been doing this a few years ago so that they won't have to rush and put out something prematurely that ultimately, and as it said in the article you wrote, I think Anissa may have said, or you, it's going to run a lot of the companies out of the U.S. So how do you feel about it? Are they rushing with this? Are the regulatory agencies rushing with their decisions on what they want to do and how to handle this? Because I know one part in the article you talked about another, and I used to deal with FINRA or FinCEN. That's another regulatory agency that is, dealing with Bank Secrecy Act and all that stuff. So who should have control over this? Or should it be shared? I think they're as confused as I am, to be honest with you, Ted.
Well, that's why I said the first step is explaining what is this? What's an NFT? What's a Bitcoin? What are the various things being sold here? And And Bitcoin has been around, what, 12 years now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a very new, in the world of financial products, that's quite new.
But I think, I think it mentioned in the article about FinCEN and how under FinCEN they were saying that they haven't determined like at what point does cryptocurrencies become a transmission type of thing, at least with Bitcoin as a payment transmission network. Well, in this world, it's almost like it happens after the fact, right? It won't, if it gets popular and big, it's too late to kind of regulate it, in my opinion, because it's more of a decentralized technology. So if it's in the hands of more people, then how do you control that? So it's very weird. I think we need to take a different approach to it, but I don't think we're going to. I really don't. I was interested to see in here, I didn't know this, and I reported on this the next day after seeing your article about the San Vegas Casino Club. This flew under my radar. This happened back in April of 2022, where Texas and Alabama issued emergency cease and desist orders, claiming that these NFTs that they issued were securities. Can you talk to that situation and how that all went down?
That's really more, Anessa had.
Oh, Anessa had, okay.
Gotcha. Brought that up.
Gotcha.
But
no, it was just interesting that now they're starting to go after NFTs, which to me, I thought they're non-fungible. They shouldn't even be thought of as securities, but I guess people, being humans, we're innovative. They've kind of taken the NFT and made it a security because people were getting kickback from holding that NFT in this virtual casino. So they've got it's a lot to regulate.
My understanding on that was that if you have these NFTs that also have an investment characteristic, then it becomes potentially a security. So that's the line apparently that was crossed there.
But the SEC feels like everything is a security because quite naturally, if I bought a Bored Ape Yacht Club NFT, the ones with all the monkeys on it, right? Mm-hmm. If I bought one of those after the fact, after it became very popular, I'm buying it with the hope that it goes up in value. I'm not just buying it just to buy it. So, but then you have to compare it to art, like the art on your wall. You don't buy it to, I guess you could just buy it to just hold value, but you also hope that it appreciates a little bit in the future. So, should that be a security? Should art be a security?
Well, art can be a security.
Okay.
You can have a fund that invests in art. Mm-hmm. And the sale of those shares in that art fund can be a security. So, and you can securitize anything. You can securitize a pair of running shoes if you want. Okay. It's just basically you sell off, you could securitize a pair of Michael Jordan's basketball shoes he wore in his last game or whatever.
Right.
But I think that in the crypto area, there's a lot of innovation, and as a result, the regulatory response is going to shift all the time too, because new things are coming up, and every time a new thing comes up, the regulators have to noodle it over and think, what is this thing? How should we regulate it? And then there's the opportunity for the feedback to go the other way, where the crypto entrepreneur adjusts their offerings based upon regulatory feedback they're getting. So it's kind of a full circle where innovation, regulatory response, which prompts additional innovation, which prompts additional regulatory response. So that is what is likely to continue to go on in the short term. And but also there's clearly a lot of fraud and deception, and there are a lot of people getting misled and hurt in this space today. So that's a very big concern as well.
Yeah, for sure. There is a decent amount of fraud in this space, but I think, that's to be expected in a new industry like. So where do we go? I question what happens to these pensions that may have crypto on their books, and if the SEC wins in the new year, and a lot of these cryptos are considered securities. Are the pension funds fined retroactively, or do they have to sell whatever stake they have? How does that go if in a hypothetical scenario? What happens if these are considered securities in the new year?
Well, it's unclear. Like I mentioned earlier, pension funds across the world have started investing in what are called alternative investments, which are hedge funds, private equity funds, real estate funds, venture funds. These are all funds that invest in something other than publicly traded stocks and bonds. That's why they're called alternative investments. So what happened for the last 15 years, pension funds all over the world have begun investing in alternative investments under terms that are inconsistent with the regulatory environment. Secrecy has crept into state and local pensions where it did not exist before. Every state has a Freedom of Information Act law, and the private equity and hedge fund industry have eviscerated state public records laws in every state. So what's going on now is 25 to 50% of all the assets in public pensions today are invested in alternative investments that are not complying with the regulatory and legal requirements. And it's been going on for 15 years. So I'm telling you that almost 35 to 50% of everything that's going on in our nation's pension funds is probably illegal or regulatorily uncertain. So you say, so what happens if pension funds get into crypto? Well, the horse is way out of the barn on this. Okay, there's stuff going on. Can I swear on your show? I don't know.
Absolutely.
There's shit going on out there that is unbelievable, that 20 years ago was unimaginable.
Who do we blame for this though, Ted?
Wall Street, 100%.
Wall Street.
Wall Street has told these state bumpkins running these pension funds that secrecy is important to have these investment opportunities. If you want to invest in these funds, you've got to do it on a secretive basis. And if you have laws on your books that require transparency, let's just agree to ignore them.
Okay. So I'm gonna push back because you say Wall Street. I say the SEC, the CFTC. I say the actual regulators, because that's where the buck should stop. Like the
regulators
should be suing these Wall Street guys, right?
Absolutely. And the SEC should be responding to state workers around the country who have contacted them about simple matters like not being allowed to see the prospectuses on how their retirement money is being invested. That's outrageous. It's outrageous that a school teacher in Ohio, who after 30 years is depending on their pension fund for their retirement security, and is told you're not allowed to see how your money is invested. That's just preposterous. But so given what's going on, what's happened in recent years at pension funds, what will happen if pension funds go more into crypto? What if they're even more into crypto than we already know? I don't know what will happen, but I know that at pension funds across the country, the law is being broken daily. A significant amount of the money in these pension funds is being grossly mismanaged and in violation of applicable law.
And to put the icing on top, most of these pensions are underperforming, correct?
Not only are they underperforming, they're underfunded.
Underperforming and underfunded.
They don't have enough money. Your average state pension is probably about 65% funded, which means they have 65 cents for every dollar they owe to pensioners. So then add to that, not only are they underfunded, the money's being managed in a way that it's underperforming. So that just makes the underfunding grow even more. It's like what I call in Whistleblower, it's like a leaking bucket. No matter how much water you pour into a leaking bucket, it's never going to stay full because it's leaking out. And these pensions don't have enough water in the bucket to start with, but then the bucket is leaking like crazy. So that's what's going on.
Yikes. So in your gut feeling, what happens to the average American? And I think I heard a stat, I believe, is it this year the most boomers retiring? Are we at the crescendo?
I'm not sure if it's this year, but the number, it's been going for years now. The numbers of boomers retiring is just growing and growing.
Right. I believe it's either this year or next year. Don't hold me to that, but I think we'll be at the peak number of boomers retiring, hitting the retirement age and pulling on their pension. So is that even something that you're calculating or forecasting in your reports as far as redemptions? I guess what that's called. The number of redemptions would also play into your fact of underfunded and underperforming. That would accelerate that issue, correct?
Yeah, I think statistically, between now and 2030, about 10,000 baby boomers retire or hit retirement age every day.
Wow.
And if you parse through the statistics, it's very grim. Your average 65-year-old has like $30,000 saved for retirement, because the numbers that you see batted around, it's, the average 65-year-old has 100,000. Well, that's
still isn't enough.
It's still not enough, but also that is, if you read the fine print, that is the average retiree who, first of all, a significant number of workers don't have 401ks at all. So they have nothing saved for retirement. And then most of the statistics deal with 401k plan participants who've been employed at least 3 years with their employer, because that's how long it takes to participate in the 401k plan. So anyhow, the data that's out there generally overstates how much is in 401k plans, and the true number is probably around $25,000-$30,000. And so, even at let's say prevailing interest rates are,
I wanted to get to that too. I wanted to get to that as the kind of closing out.
You can't retire on $30,000. If you're at 5%, that's $1,500 a year. That's what, $150 a month from your investments, and then you get, let's say, $1,000 a month from Social Security. How are you going to retire? I don't know.
Yeah, so you bring up a good point, which was what I was going to close with today, Ted, and it is the Federal Reserve fight against inflation. What are we going to do here? That has to play a huge part in the actuary tables and their estimates on payouts and everything. What does the Federal Reserve do at this point? Do they because I think they're in a corner, if you think about it. If they try to fight inflation, which they're attempting to do now, inflation is going to hurt the savers and the retirees. But in fighting inflation, they're going to pull the stock market down, which affects the retirees or the ones about to retire, because the stock market and bonds, their pension, that's where their pension is. What the hell do we what do we do here?
Well, I think what we have going on now is there was a massive cash infusion during COVID to keep America rolling. And predictably, it has nothing to do with Biden. It has to do with, under the Trump years, massive amounts of money went out to the public. And so the next administration is inevitably dealing with inflation. And so the Fed's goal is to slow that down, which they're doing. And it never comes to a screeching halt. So it's a question of, when do they say we've slowed things down enough? And the winners in these situations are always people who have enough money to ride out the storm. The worst thing you can do is freak out and sell at the bottom. And for many people, it's not a question of whether or not to sell at the bottom. They have no choice. They got, if you have
Right.
limited funds, and then you have to. But so again, the wealthiest will ride things out, I'm sure. But for people who need their money more quickly and who freak out or whatever, it's going to be a very rough time.
Yeah.
But
Do you think UBI is all? I think so. I don't see a way out. Do you believe UBI will be the last ditch effort to keep civility, keep things civil in America? I don't see another outcome. How do you feel about UBI and that potentially being an additional solution?
a very interesting concept. I mean, it depends on what your thinking is. I mean, for me, every American should have basic health care and food. And if you don't, and some sort of income, and if you don't, society pays for it anyhow. It's not as if when you deny people health care, it's not as if they, go off into the distance and just die. They go to emergency rooms. They go for help. They get sicker. So, however, whether you provide basic health care or basic income, or let people, deteriorate, let them falter and die, I believe the cost is the same. If not, I think it's actually cheaper to provide universal health care than it is not provide it, and then have all these people end up in emergency rooms. And similar on the UBI ideas. If people don't have a place to live, then everything else falls apart. I mean, you can buy kids, toys for tots. You can,
Right.
whatever. But if the kids don't have a home to keep their toys in, there's really no point in that.
Yeah.
There's no point in anything unless people have a roof over their heads.
Right.
I mean, even food insecurity, I don't think it's better to be homeless and fed than homeless and hungry, but I don't think anybody should be homeless in this country, period. So anyhow, that's my personal point of view. Is I think that we have to say that every American's life has value, and that we put our money where our mouth is.
Well, there you have it, guys. Ted Seidel back on with CBTV Crypto Blood again. Great having him on. If you guys like this, make sure you hit the thumbs up if you want to have Ted Seidel on again to give us an update on what's going on with these. He's got another case that he can't talk about right now. We're about to start. So hopefully when that is public, we'll have him back on to talk about that. Any last words, Ted?
No, I just would encourage anybody who is in the crypto space that, think about solutions. I mean, think about what are the risks, the problems with crypto, and how do you solve those? If you want to see crypto more broadly embraced, think of ways to make it more transparent, more acceptable to pension fiduciaries and others, because I think there's an opportunity there. But we're not there now, but I think there is an opportunity there.
All right. Well, again, thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe, all that good stuff. There's another Kicking the Session with Crypto Blood. I'm out of here. Holla.